Welcome back to another video on my physics-based boxing game Punch a Bunch that I'm making in Unreal Engine. It's the first game I'm ever making and I've been working on it for almost 2 years now. I am determined to finish this game before I hit that 2-year mark though, which will be in a few months. So it's just a huge final push for me now to really finish this game off. I think I can get through the finish line. However, I also have this growing to-do list, which is growing at a rate faster than I am able to actually tick things off as done. So unless I do something about that, I will never finish this game. For the release of the game, I've decided to make 15 bosses. There'll be like 3 different leagues that you can participate in with different difficulties. So there'll be easy, medium, and hard. And each of them will have 5 opponents each. So that's 15. As you know, Toby is our first and easiest opponent for the game, who won't provide much of a challenge apart from just getting used to the control and getting a feel for the game. I want our next opponent to be distinctly different from Toby. So Toby's got the training helmet on, very basic looking. So I want the next one to be more of like an edgy character. So I'm making this sort of thug guy with, you know, a chain around his neck. And I'm not gonna lie, I spent probably a whole day just trying to get the chain physics to work. But I think it was worth it because I think it looks really cool as it is. So hey, I can hopefully reuse this for later bosses. We'll name him Doug. You know, like Doug the Thug. I thought it could be really cool to base a character off a monk, you know, with like yellow robes, and yeah, that was a big mistake. Doing this meant I had to learn how to do clothing in Blender, which was insanely difficult. If you thought the chain took a long time, oh boy, this was a lot worse. Anyways, eventually it turned out, and I'm pretty happy with it. It got a lot of like intersections and stuff, but you know, we'll just have to deal with that later. Hey, if not, well, have fun playing. What's interesting about this boss though is that I want to slowly introduce the player to the idea of some of the opponents having special abilities. So since this is a monk, I figured this is a great opportunity to give him some extra jizz, you know what I mean? I'm not going to give him anything crazy, so I'm going to give him one ability where he hovers off the ground and is able to, through meditation, replenish life. And then you have to kind of chase him down and give him a clap to break his spell, and hopefully he doesn't recover his entire life. He can also do like sort of like a wind attack. I was thinking of Avatar. I haven't watched that, but I feel like, you know, wind and stuff. Probably, yeah, wind. I don't know, I thought it could be kind of cool. It's not very threatening, and I think it's a great way to just kind of get the player used to the idea that, you know, hey, there might be something more to this game than just boxing. And also, I was able to recycle the work I had done for the chain on the thug to make this monk necklace. Hehehe, time well spent, told you guys. Obviously, I'd love to make more, and 15 might not seem like a lot, but I'd rather make 15 really fun and interesting bosses to face off with, rather than, say, 30 bland and uninteresting ones that just feel mass-produced. And then I can add more bosses after the game is released and just make sure that I'm working on quality rather than quantity. I'm using this Milanote document to stay on track with the bosses. Red means that it's not started. When I start working on it, I'll mark it yellow. When it's done, I'll mark it green. I can also store reference images and notes under each boss, which is really helpful for just jotting quick ideas down. Next up, we got Cookie, the rookie. He's gonna be sort of like a leveled up version of Toby, so he'll be wearing the same sort of headgear and everything, but just with different colors. Now, this is looking pretty bland in comparison to the previous 2 bosses, and that is intentional because I want the player to take a step back and say, hey, why is this one going back to normal? Well, that's because we're actually leveling up the difficulty a little bit now. We're just nudging it up a bit, and the reason I'm removing the fancy stuff and just going back to a simpler version is so that the player can focus more on the gameplay here. And then our last boss in our amateur series, which I'm really excited about, is going to be an epic Viking. Now, we already have the helmet because I outsourced that to Fiverr, if you guys remember that. I just had to add some textures to it, and I think this will do for now. I also thought it could be cool to have some sort of bear hide or something on his shoulders. Yeah, fur. Haha. Great. Yeah, so cloth and fur. Some of the hardest stuff to do in games, and we're obviously gonna do both. Actually, it didn't take me so long, but it also turned out really, really bad, and when I was about 5 minutes away from giving up, I finally reached something that I think looks pretty good. I don't know, what do you guys think? I think this looks pretty decent, actually. I'm quite surprised with myself, and I think I'm just gonna leave it at this and call it a day, because I don't think I can do it any better than this. Since the Viking is the last boss in the beginner series, I definitely wanted to give him some cool special abilities that the player will actually start to struggle with a little bit this time. So I gave him like a charge thing so that he can just charge at you with his horns. I thought that could make sense. And then I also gave him sort of this rampage Viking frenzy mode where he just starts swinging around at you. And these are unblockable attacks, and the only way to avoid them... Actually, I'm gonna let you figure that one out when you play the game yourself. How about that? No spoilers.
Definitely one of the hardest things about making your own game completely alone is just staying on track with things and keeping the to-do list small and tangible.
I'm doing my best, but I will admit that I've been mainly focusing on learning how to actually make a game. And in truth, I don't really know much about that either. I've only ever really taken a few courses and read a couple of books on game dev.
Well, except this one. I didn't actually finish that.
So product management has unfortunately taken a bit of a backseat. So remember that huge list I was talking about before? Yeah, I had to delete that. So instead, I came up with a different system. I wrote down a list of things that I absolutely have to get done before I can release the game. Nothing more, nothing less. And then I assigned a number of weeks that I thought would be realistic in order to finish these tasks. It's working out really well so far, actually, and it gives me a really tangible goal, which is something I never really had before. And if I stick to this timeline, I know when I should be able to release my game, which is somewhere in April. Don't quote me on that though.
You know, usually I include a bunch of fun stuff in my devlogs, but you know, since it's because it's winter, I just haven't really been up to much. I've just been sitting in here literally working on the game.
Days are definitely blending together, and we also had quite a few days of snow, which completely disrupted my normal running schedule, which I rely on a lot to stay somewhat sane in this whole process. But I guess the exercise got replaced with shoveling a lot of snow. But we're in February now, and I'm finally back to my normal schedule, and the snow is all gone. I've just kept working away on the game and just trying to get as much done as I possibly can in between editing devlogs and doing live streams. It's definitely hard to keep up with things, but I'm feeling positive and really optimistic about the game. Another opponent I'm really excited to start working on is the Sumo. I have quite a few ideas of what I think this guy could do, so I wanted to dive straight in and start working on this one, even though it's not at the top of the list. I know, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? I figured since he is a Sumo, I wanted to give him just a bit of extra way to really sell the idea that he is a Sumo. Also modeled up some Sumo hair for him and the standard Sumo diaper. I'm really happy with how it looks. It looks really fun, and I think it's definitely probably my favorite boss so far. Of course, he's gonna have some special abilities, so we'll obviously have the mandatory standard Sumo foot stomp, which stuns you to no matter where you are on the playing field, so you gotta just make sure to get some distance so that he can't get you before your stun is up. I also gave him like a Sumo clap attack, which deals a lot of damage. And as a final attack, I wanted him to have this sort of infinite Sumo open hand attack sort of thing going on. Now, I realized it's very hard to portray open fists with boxing gloves. So I don't know how successful this one was, but I'm gonna keep it. I'm happy with it. It looks fun, it's challenging to dodge, and overall I'm really happy with it. I think he's a really fun boss. He is definitely difficult, but that's okay because he is the final boss in the intermediate series after all. One thing that's particular about this boss is because he's got so much weight around his waist that any attacks aimed towards his stomach are gonna be pretty ineffective. So this Sumo guy, you're gonna have to deal with just head punches, which I think is a bit of an interesting twist.
A lot of you are asking, you know, what's after Punch a Bunch? What do I want to do after I finish this game? Do I want to make more games? What do I want to do? I don't know. I think it's too early to say. I'm focusing on finishing this game, and that's all I'm thinking about. I don't like veering too far into the future. You just never really know what's going to happen, do you? So just focus on the task at hand, and whatever happens will happen. Usually plans don't work out that well anyway, so might as well just kind of go with the flow, if you know what I mean.
The weeks have been moving faster than I would have hoped for. I am doing great progress with the bosses. I'm pretty much a third done, which I'm really happy about, but I have also already blown past my deadline. I'm actually supposed to be working on the local multiplayer right now, but to my defense, I didn't really account for Christmas being a thing, so I definitely lost a lot of time then. So in theory, I'm still on schedule, but I know, excuses. What I might do is to just take a pause with the bosses and move on to work with the multiplayer and just follow the schedule all the way to the end now, now as well as I can, and then just return to the things that I didn't have time for after. I really don't want to get caught up nitpicking things, so I think this approach is going to be pretty healthy. There's definitely a lot to do still with the game, and while the task is definitely overwhelming, I do feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel finally, and I'm really excited, but also a little bit sad to finally see this project approaching its end.